Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings here on 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 9 minutes past the top of the hour. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and welcome to the show via telephone, Mr. Chris Mays from The Reformer. How are you, Chris?
How are you?
I'm good, and you know what? You sound great now that I turned your mic on. That doesn't bode well for the rest of the day, does it? Chris, so one thing I don't know about you, but what I'm doing today is figuring out how I will be spending the rest of my day. How are you going to be balancing the midterms and covering the select board?
Well, I'm going to go vote, and then I have a court hearing, and then I will be going to the municipal center and talking with people. I do want to talk with the town clerk. I saw she had posted, the Brattleboro town clerk had posted that they had a record turnout for early voting, so I kind of wanted to check in with her and see where they were at.
Isn't that
today.
Cool?
Yeah, and I know she's been anticipating a high turnout for midterms after a big showing at during the primary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just as a reminder to folks, if you haven't voted yet and you're in Brattleboro, voting this year is at the American Legion on Linden Street. So it's post number 5, and it's the building between kind of the courthouse and the municipal center. If you're wondering where it is the American Legion, post number 5. Looking at the select board agenda, I have to say one item that caught my attention, Chris, I'm wondering your thoughts on it, is the mural in the Harmony parking lot. There seems to be the town art committee is concerned about contributing, and I'm just reading from the report, contributing artists are not being charged for access to add their art to the mural. What, do you know what's going on?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sense of it all too. I guess there's there's some questions of whether artists were charged a fee to put their website on the mural, and I think they're trying to clear up whether or not this is allowed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that will definitely be one of the things you and I are watching at the select board meeting. Now, what about, sorry, did I cut you off?
Yeah, and before that, there's a couple of neighbors who are upset about the new the light for the pedestrian crossing light to make it more visible to operators of vehicles passing by.
Mm-hmm. And that's at the Western Ave Union Hill intersection?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And the town is recommending, town staff is recommending that they move forward as planned with this project. It has been somewhat of a trouble spot. A pedestrian was killed in that area a few years back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How far away are they from installing the pedestrian crossing device?
It's coming up pretty soon.
And this device will be similar to the one that's over by the Academy School, right? Where it's not like what's downtown, where there's a walk, but it's that lighted bar that when you press a button, it just flashes to let cars know there's someone's in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other thing I find interesting is potential changes to the employee health insurance program. It's not a very sexy topic, but it looks like their deductible may be going up.
Yeah, I saw a similar thing kind of play out in Wilmington last week, and they're considering going with the Chamber of Commerce, who's going to be in Wilmington. They're going to be offering health care plans, and they're considering whether to join up with them for what could be some cost savings possibly.
That would be interesting, an interesting solution. What any other items on the agenda that you're interested in, Chris?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty interested in this proposal for solar at the
Oh
Brattleboro
yeah.
Transportation Center.
Mm-hmm. And that
A
would be
few
by
months,
Green Lantern Solar.
yeah, and a few months back, Ralph Mima from Green Lantern came to the Energy Committee in Brattleboro and talked about the possibility of this project, and they all seemed like it was a good idea to at least discuss with the select board and town staff. So now Ralph is going to be asking for the town to enter into to sign a letter of intent, which
Mm-hmm.
would allow Green Lantern to go to start a feasibility study to see whether this is something that would be worthwhile for them and the community.
Oh wow, very interesting things that are happening in the middle of a major midterm election.
I know it's tough. I said I want to go to this meeting, and then yesterday we were planning it out, and we have the race in Guilford and Vernon, which my coworker Bob will be covering, and then we have the Senate race, which Susan and I will be covering, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not sure if I'm going to have to just watch it on TV or what.
Can you jet out in the middle of the select board meeting and then come back?
Yeah, I thought about that.
Since they are right next to each other.
Yeah.
Oh, the life of a reporter. All the glamour, all the time. And we also can't forget that this is tonight will be the preliminary discussion about the fiscal 20 budget, which of course there's a lot of planning and discussion ahead, but this will mark kind of the beginning of the budget season.
Yes, it's that now, the board's going to be meeting more regularly and discussing how to finance their projects and their operations.
Chris and I have to go to break, but we shall return very soon. And I want to remind folks that BCTV is here filming this segment of Green Mountain Mornings, and broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Thank you for being patient with us here on Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM, AM 1490. Chris Mays from The Reformer, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us, there is a gathering called the Tree of Life Gathering that's happening. Tell me a little bit about that.
It actually happened on Sunday.
Oh, on Sunday.
It was the second rally in town where the community came together to stand up against hatred and bigotry and anti-Semitism. This was led by Cantor Kate Judd of Brattleboro Area Jewish Community Congregation, Haram. And it was held in front of the Center Congregational Church on Main Street. And it was really amazing to see how many people came out and held up signs and prayed together. They did a Jewish prayer, and everybody sort of participated in it. And cars came by, and people were waving, and there was beeping of the horns, and people really stood in support of the local congregation, who was showing support for the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, where 11 people were killed during a shooting.
And if I recall, it was a pretty strong turnout as well.
Yeah, we counted, Kate and I counted about 100 people there.
Mm-hmm.
I must have tried to count about 6 or 7 times, and it was just so hard because then I all of a sudden see a group of people behind these other people, and new people would come along, and I just gave up and tried to give some kind of estimate, and Kate said the same thing I was thinking. So,
And what were some of Kate's comments on the morning?
She said it was very moving for her to see everybody coming together, and she said it was a time of fear and rage and sorrow in the Jewish community. And she said it wasn't just about the Jewish community. It was just overall in the political climate and all the hatred that's been bubbling up on social media and playing out in these violent acts across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's they're really kind of wearing at our social fabric at this point.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see some of the leaders from the other faiths. We had a rector from St. Michael's Episcopal Church and Scott Cooper, the Reverend of Center Congregational Church, and Reverend Shana Appala from All Souls Unitarian Church in West Brattleboro.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody spoke, and I think it felt good for people to be together at this time.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of changes in the community, not that there's any delicate transition from community violence, Wilmington has hired a new police chief.
Yeah, and it's his name is Matthew Morano. He was a sergeant on the department. He's been with the department for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about keeping the rapport with the community. Really, he's interested in modeling his leadership after the last police chief, who was with the department for 36 years.
Wow. And
yeah,
the new chief, he has started his duties, so he's officially on the job now.
Yep, I went to his to the ceremony last Thursday. It was at the town office. He was sworn in as police chief, and I got a chance to interview him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and he said he wants to kind of model his work on the chief that came before. Does he have any new initiatives or anything new he wants to bring to the department?
He's actually taking part in this FBI training.
Mm-hmm.
It's with police officials all across the United States, and they discuss best practices and they discuss some of the issues they've addressed and how some successful ways that they've found, and so he hopes to bring that back to Wilmington. He acknowledged the opioid epidemic, but he also said, it's not just opioids, drugs on the whole. They're all around the community, and he talked about how the community had been organizing efforts to help. So it wasn't just the police department sort of enforcing their way out of it. And that's something that we see in Brattleboro too. The police department acknowledging that it's a team effort. It's the community coming together to find solutions.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that, Chris. Chris and I are going to hand you off to Natalie Knowles with her local news. We will return after the break. This is Green Mountain Mornings. You are listening on 100.3 FM, AM 1490. I am your host, Olga Peters, and my guest this hour, if you're just joining us, is Chris Mays from The Reformer. So, Chris, talk to me about Hearth Stone expanding in Brattleboro.
Yeah, Hearth Stone started almost exactly a year ago. It was in October 2017, and it was two doctors in Townsend who were pretty much just sick of the way other private medical practices have to operate, mainly because of the insurance billing requirements. And they were finding they were on the computer and filing all this information more than they were talking with patients and spending time with patients. Dr. Ed Mulhern, he had a practice in Townsend for about 30 years, and wow. He was talking to now the co-owner of Hearth Stone, which is Dr. Jesper Brickley, and he wanted to get out of the job at Grace Cottage Hospital, and he had seen this model that was being used around the country where it was based on a subscription rather than copay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so when they first introduced the concept to the community, that I got this feeling like they were kind of uncertain whether it would work or not, and they were sort of asking the community to take the chance with them. And after a year, they decided they needed an office in Brattleboro. So almost a year to the date, they opened in Brattleboro on University Way. It's by the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're talking about hiring somebody else. It might not be another doctor, it might be a nurse practitioner, but they're saying that pretty soon there's going to be a need to have another provider in the practice.
Wow. It seems that the community has taken the risk and is happy.
Yeah, and I talked a lot with the two doctors about what their ideas are around healthcare, and Dr. Mulhern really homed in on the idea that there's pain and there's suffering. The pain is often what the doctors are really focused on getting rid of and alleviating, but the suffering is the mental part, and a lot of doctors aren't able to really talk with their patients and get an idea of what their mental processes are. So that's something he's trying to really figure out.
That is intriguing. Now, did they have a chance to tell you how many patients they currently have on their books?
They didn't, but they said they'd like to have 600 to each doctor. And so if they're pretty close to hiring another person, you got to think, that they're pretty close to meeting those quotas, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm. You said 600?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that just seems a lot to me. But then again, I don't.
I guess that's. I think one of the doctors in Brattleboro, before he retired, he had about 1,200 patients.
Okay. Well,
to give it to some context.
Yeah, I suppose not every patient comes to see you every month or every year even.
Yeah, part of the subscription is an annual physical exam, and they look at different things. It's not just medical, but other aspects of your health.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can book an appointment for anything, and the appointments typically last anywhere from 40 to 60 minutes, sometimes even more.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, how does the model work? It sounds like you pay a monthly fee, and that monthly fee guarantees certain things.
Yep.
Kind of what does it give us the breakdown of that?
Well, I think two of the biggest things are the prescription and lab costs. Those are people are charged at cost for those. So whatever the practice is paying, they're paying.
Okay.
So that's pretty big, and they're paying for these longer doctor visits. Most times I'm told doctors' visits last about 15 minutes, and these are at least double that.
Mm-hmm.
And patients also get what's called 24-hour access to doctors, so they can email, call, or go to actual visits. The 24-hour access is really about telephone calls and emails.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors make themselves available to their patients and pretty much around the clock, and people can come during business hours, and it acts as an urgent care provider too.
Okay. Interesting. Well, congratulations to them and their expansion. Now, shifting gears, let's talk about a petition that's been filed regarding the West River Valley 6th grade proposal. What's the backstory there?
All right. Well, I've told you before, and we've talked about the a lot of parents in the West River Valley community are upset with um, this plan to have sixth graders go to Leland and Gray Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's slated to start next school year.
Okay.
And so a lot of parents had a petition asking the school board to reconsider their vote, and the school board voted not to reconsider their initial vote.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
now this group is circulating another petition, and they hope to bring it to the next meeting, which is on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it asks the school board to schedule a community-wide vote on whether this should go forward. And the petition asks them to have an Australian ballot vote within 30 days of receiving the petition. And I think that will make sure that it gets done while they're talking about the budget, while they're putting the budget together,
Mm-hmm.
rather than waiting until the budget is presented. And one parent told me that, if the board isn't going to listen to this petition and the community, that he believes the community will sort of hold the budget hostage and keep voting down the budget until there's a community-wide vote or until they change course.
Well, that's no rigmarole there.
Yeah,
I
it's a big thing.
I feel sorry for both the concerned parents and the school board members because it doesn't seem like it's an easy situation for either of them.
No, it doesn't. And this is all done in the context of Act 46,
Mm-hmm.
which saw all these school districts merge, the West Valley districts like Jamaica, Townsend, Newbrook, and Townsend. These are all the elementary schools that are affected by this decision. And the school board and school officials are really trying to figure out ways to improve student outcomes and experiences. That's sort of what Act 46 is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel like they're making the right decision, but community members don't feel like it's the right call for their kids.
Right. So remind us, why did the school board feel that moving the sixth grade to Leland and Gray was the better option for kids?
Because it gets kids into a bigger group. It gets them ready to have a few teachers at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more program offerings, foreign language and other type of activities.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about for the concerned parents? What are their concerns about moving kids to Leland and Gray?
They're concerned that their kids are going to be with older kids. They might be susceptible to peer pressure. That they're too young to be in the school with the older kids. That they should have more playtime, and recess is sort of taken out of the equation at Leland and Gray. Whereas in sixth grade, the kids are still on the playground with the younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this feeling that in sports, in sixth grade, the kids are at the top of their team, and that they're learning the sports still. And if they go to an older team, then they're gonna sit on the bench, and they're not going to really learn the fundamentals the way they would
Mm-hmm.
on the other team.
Good reminders. Thank you for that, Chris. And we should probably just touch quickly, and I realize neither of us have our notes in front of us around Act 46, but the school board, the state school board, or the Vermont school board, I should say, is still looking at a few districts that have yet to merge. The BUHS district is one of them, for lack of a better term, Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union.
Yep.
How are the rest of the schools in Wyndham County doing? They have found plans and are moving forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, I know Wyndham isn't happy. I mean, the Southeast Supervisory Union merger has some people who are unhappy too, as we both know.
Mm-hmm.
And the other sort of forced consolidation that's anticipated is Wyndham into this West River district.
Oh, that's right. I had forgotten.
And Wyndham, I haven't been covering it. My coworker Susan has, and they're really trying to fight this with all their might. They're considering all avenues in fighting this forced merger.
Mm-hmm. Well, Wyndham is one of those interesting schools that I think Act 46 was created in an attempt to help, but maybe for some people has not. And that's because they are geographically pretty isolated. They're a very tiny school. And in many ways, there's a lot of things they don't necessarily fit with some of the other schools close to them because of their geographical isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how these quote unquote forced mergers go. I suspect we still have a lot of conversations about Act 46 ahead of us, even though the midterms have been kind of getting everyone's focus right now.
Yeah, and nothing has been finalized yet, but the board has indicated the way it's leaning, and it happens locally. It happens to be with the recommendations that came from the Agency of Education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, one of the wild cards, we have a couple wild cards ahead of us. One is Christine Hallquist, during her campaign, has been pretty upfront about not being in favor of forced mergers. However, Act 46 is in law. And so whether or not even a governor could kind of change things midstream, or midstream, I should say, is both of those two factors are kind of wild cards in my mind.
Yeah, and I've talked with the lieutenant governor candidates, and they sort of felt the same way as Christine. They really called into question whether forced consolidations were the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Did they happen to offer any other alternatives?
Not necessarily. David Zuckerman, the incumbent, he was talking about how maybe the legislature might need to look at whether the state board is really working in the way that the law intended.
Interesting. Okay. Well, hey, Chris, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and good luck doing the double duty of select board and covering the midterms.
Thanks, Al. Maybe I'll see you out there.
I'm sure you will. Take care, Chris.
You too.
Bye. That's Chris Mays from The Reformer, and now your weather.